So thank you all for coming. Today I'm going to be talking about a life of faith in a world of alternative facts. It's going to be a little bit shorter of a service today, so I want to invite everyone to maybe have a conversation a little bit immediately following the service about what this might look like in our own communities, because I think it's going to be different for everyone. So when I did a quick Google search for alternative facts in preparation for this morning's presentation, I was confronted with over 180 million search results. And this may come as no surprise, but I didn't read through them all. But I did quickly get the sense that this topic is incredibly divisive. On the one hand, we have grand conspiracy theories that revolve around claims about how the media has banded with scientists, Muslims, communists, and, quote, the gays, to create a new totalitarian regime. While on the other hand, we have the thoroughly modernist response of the left with its adherence to empiricism and objective truth. In either case, it's not hard to see that in a move that has further solidified the divide between the left and the right, both sides have decidedly tightened their grip on their narrative of choice. Today, I want to briefly talk about what it might look like to live a life of faith in a world of alternative facts. But I first want to talk about narratives for just a moment. The search for an all-encompassing narrative, a capital T truth that exists outside of our material reality, can be traced way back into ancient history. From Plato's influence on St. Augustine's interpretation of Scripture, in which all of creation is held to a universal standard that exists outside of our material reality, to the modern approach to empiricism that views the world through a thoroughly materialistic lens. Throughout history, truth has proven to be closely connected to, and some might argue inextricably linked with power and privilege. As the author of the article titled "The Real Truth About Fake News" suggests, as a successor to the church, science introduced a more robust participatory means of creating consensus, while serving to monopolize power to determine the perceptions and truths of society more efficiently than religion ever could have. In the same way that capitalism stabilized the hierarchies of feudalism by offering more individual mobility within them, science stabilized the monolithic notion of truth advanced by the Catholic Church by offering a means in which a much wider range of people could participate in shaping this truth. While this capital T truth shifted away from an individual's direct access to a universal standard that exists outside of our world to a more collective participatory model, our current ongoing conversation about alternative facts and fake news may reveal that we do not have as much participation in this quest for truth as we had previously thought. This is not to suggest that facts deduced from the scientific method are not true when observed from the metaphysical framework that it presumes, but rather that this way of engaging the world often admits our subjective experiences of the world, experiences that may be expressed more appropriately through music, dance, poetry, and painting, as opposed to a unified theory of everything. Over and over, pretensions to pure scientific objectivity have concealed and legitimized the imposition of social and ethical frameworks along supposedly neutral technological innovations. Technological innovations that include news channels that only cater to certain demographics, or Facebook algorithms that allow us to see articles that only serve to reinforce our own values. We live in a world where we no longer need to engage or even encounter worldviews that differ from our own. And we have become so fearful of our own uncertainty, doubt, and inability to connect our experiences to the world around us that we cling ever so tightly to our chosen narratives, proclaiming that we are the bearers of truth and those who disagree with us or have something different to say are merely proponents of fake news, informed by alternative facts. Our society is fracturing. Some might argue it's always been fracturing. And each splinter has its own narrative, its own history, and its own story to tell. And while each community has its own understanding of reality, these understandings are often enclosed, amplified, and shaped by social media algorithms. If truth does not lie within a system of participatory civic engagement, a central authority granted to us from God, or by scientific consensus, then where might we find truth? If fact-checking, calling people out on social media, and sending article after article to that one friend that we think we can persuade to, quote, our side, doesn't work, then how might we come to a consensus? How might we come to understand truth? I want to suggest this morning that our search for a universal narrative, our quest for a capital T truth, is misguided. As people of faith, we have often made the claim that a life of faith is one that pursues a standard of perfection that exists outside of our reality. Within the Wesleyan tradition, we see this in certain interpretations of holiness, where holiness is equated with a rejection of the body and material world. We also see this within some Reformed Calvinist traditions, where we are presented with the idea of total depravity, in which we are born within a sin nature that is often considered to be deeply embodied and weighed against a standard of perfection that exists somewhere outside of our material reality. The result is a disembodied faith that focuses on a pursuit of ideals that are always just beyond our reach, often removing ourselves further and further from our embodied existence and farther away from the very real voices and struggles of our neighbors. Today, I want to suggest that at the very core of the gospel message is a profound embrace of our material existence, not a call to escape it. Our sacred scriptures are filled with countless passages that give us a glimpse of a God who is not afraid to get a little dirt underneath her nails, a God who forsakes heaven to embrace the brokenness of the world, to embrace the tension that exists between the ideal and the real, the spiritual and the physical, and the sacred and the profane. The Gospels reveal to us a radical embrace of the other, in which we encounter God in the places that we least expect it. Jesus shows us that we no longer have to escape our own material world to encounter God, but that God is found deep within our embodied experiences of love. In the Gospel of Matthew, we see that God is found when we encounter those who are least in our society. That when we deny food, water, clothing, and care for the least of these, we have denied these very things to God. So what does this have to do with alternative facts or fake news? How does this radical embrace of our material embodied reality help us to move beyond the tension of a continuously splintering world where each individual or group seems to be the bearers of their own truth? To put it bluntly, it doesn't. There's no easy answer or easy fix to the problems that we face. Instead, it invites us into the tension that competing narratives create. It challenges us to listen to those whose voices often go unheard. It demands that we interrogate our beliefs in light of new ways of understanding the world around us. In her memoir, Recollections of My Life as a Woman, Deanne Primo recalls a conversation with her grandfather about the importance of love, in which he tells her that love is the struggle for truth between two people. Love is a struggle for truth between two people. If God is love, as many of us have often claimed to believe, then much like in the Gospel of Matthew, this would suggest that God is found in the struggle for truth in community. Our call to love God and love our neighbor as ourselves is one that invites us into the tension of competing narratives, one that disrupts our desires for certainty so that something entirely new may emerge out of the process. In this way, certainty and truth are no longer the driving force of our experience of the world. These things give way to a radical new vision that is driven by the uncertainty of values. Values like creativity, beauty, joy, and love. In this way, as one author put it, every occupier, black insurgent, water protector, and black bloc militant has witnessed and contributed to the emergence of new sensibilities, new ways of articulating rage and sorrow, new experiences of joy and tragedy and desire. Through these experiments of collective living, decision-making, and self-expression and sharing, and deconstruction and reconstruction, we come to discover something entirely new and life-giving together. Our call as followers of Jesus is to accept a new way of life, to adopt a new set of values that disperses power, challenges the notion of a central authority, demands that we privilege relationality over individuality, the margins over the center, and the material over the ideal. In closing, I want to invite every last one of you who is able to join me as I step into this space of tension. We don't have to look far. I don't have to look outside of myself to see that these issues are not one-sided. I know that when I encounter beliefs, experiences, and ways of life that radically differ from my own, my immediate response is to cling tighter to my narrative, to point out their inconsistencies, and to distance myself from this place of tension. Often the last thing I want to do is to lean into this challenging space. But over the next few days, weeks, months, I want to challenge you all to explore with me what it might look like to use these spaces of tension to construct new ways of being in relationship with those who differ from us, new ways of being in solidarity with those who are oppressed, new ways of being vulnerable, and new ways of challenging overarching narratives. When we lean into these spaces of tension that are created by competing truths, when we loosen our grip on our beliefs rather than tighten so tightly that we can't focus on anything else, we may find new ways to articulate justice, solidarity, relationality, and love. We may then see that it is not about replacing one all-encompassing narrative or truth with another, but about providing space for a multiplicity of experiences. We may finally discover what it means to find truth together in community. Thank you.